So this is going to be a little rambling. Again, unplanned. Just about a week ago, I think almost to the hour, maybe a little bit more. A friend of mine in the watch world, Sean Cody, uh, passed away. He died just about 1 week ago. You can see if you ever go through the older comments in my videos, you will see comments from Sean Cody. And I don't know. His funeral is on the 2nd in Texas, and I won't be able to be there. I don't know. I just wanted to sort of have a tribute to him and talk about him a little bit, because if he were around and kicking, he would be jazzed to have me talk about my opinions about the guy, and I don't know. It'd just be funny. I just can't believe he's gone. It's always weird when somebody passes, especially suddenly, without warning, and the world is just there's just a hole in the world, and so Sean's he's not with us anymore. Um, Sean was an extremely genial and friendly guy, an attorney in Texas, and he was in Houston, and he was really, really, really super enthusiastic about the things that he enjoyed. He loved his boys, he loved his family. He was really, really, really into watches, and he was also he was big into from professionally. He did a lot of other interests that he had, but his love of watches was severe. It was just amazing. And he was one of my earliest customers. He was one of the first people to really support us. And the thing that was great is that he was somebody who was always cheerful, and he was always focused, and he was always happy to talk watches, and he really he worked his way into our lives. Really, he went from being a customer all those times ago to being a friend. I mean, it got to the point where, I mean, he would check in with us all the time. I would chat with him almost every day. And he was a funny guy, and I mean, we didn't agree politically on certain things, but the measure of him is that didn't bother him. And so, I mean, we still talked and virtually hung out and did all kinds of stuff. He brought a lot of watch joy into my life. He had it's always good to get a different take on things, and also, being that he was so cheerful and so open and willing to share, that's kind of unusual in the watch world, especially sort of higher end collectors. They tend to be kind of like wizards in their towers, and they're cagey about where they get their stuff, and they're cagey about what they have. And Sean wasn't like that. He super enjoyed watches and loved talking about them and loved buying them. He had crazy enthusiasms for certain models, or he'd go through like a phase, and he would just go nuts on certain watches, like the Mac V SOG watches. He was crazy about them, and he would never just get one. He'd get like multiples, like 3 or 4 or 5 of them. Like here's a watch model that I think he was almost unique in loving. He loved these 6139 8020s. These watches right here. I always kind of thought they were neat, but I never really thought of them that much because they don't have a tacky ring or a bezel or anything else like that. Sean loved them. I think he must have bought, oh gosh, 6 or 7 of them. And he even hunted down something I'd never heard of before, which was as often happens with vintage Seiko stuff, that's items going to Southeast Australia, like Australasia, oftentimes would have better quality not movements, better quality bracelets. They would have the Stellux version of the bracelet. So I didn't even know that such a thing existed for this model, but it does. And so, darn it, I should have gotten an example. Hang on. There we go. Okay. So out of my project drawers, this is the standard 6139 8020 right here. So you can see it's got this bracelet which replicates the spokes of like an old school rally steering wheel with the aluminum with the holes in it. That's what it looks like. This is the standard Seiko made bracelet. Sean came up with, somehow, I don't know where he found it, but he found one where the holes were solid. And I'm like, what in the heck is that thing? And then I started doing some research, and I was able to track one down myself. These are cool. They're made by Stellux. The rest of the watch is the same, but it has this kind of high-end bracelet with this long Stellux clasp, and it's a really solid bracelet. They're super cool. And so I hunted one down. I'd never heard of it before him. He was just so cheerful, and he always would. The nice thing about Sean too is that he wasn't really. I'm not that easy a person to get to know. I can be pretty standoffish from folks, and I don't think Sean even thought about it. He would just always talk to me when he felt like talking to me, and it was always funny. And I learned things from him. When I finally, after I inherited my great uncle's Rolex Explorer, I started getting a little more interested in Rolex, and so I started thinking about Submariners. And he had a lot of knowledge about Rolex. He was a real big Rolex guy. He loved that stuff. And so he helped me find a good used, relatively speaking, bargain of a Submariner, my 16610. Sean helped me find this. He looked over the listing and all that stuff and gave me advice. You know, the great thing is if you don't know something, you find somebody who does, and then they can help you. And Sean helped me with that. He gave me good input on the root beer as well. He was always threatening me he was going to buy this thing, but he had other things he was trying to do, and so it was nothing he'd gotten around to yet. The last watch of mine, I sold him a lot of my watches, a lot of watches that only he would have gotten because he really appreciated them, and I knew too that they would stay with him. He was not a person to sell watches at all. So over the years, I sold a lot of watches to Sean, in many cases, only because he asked about them, and I wasn't wearing them, and I was like, okay. So Sean has some great watches from me. Only one watch ever went into Sean Cody's collection and came back to me. Only one. This MacV SOG 6119 8100. This is Sabrina's watch. She didn't wear it at all. It was in the safe, and she hadn't worn it for a long time. And Sean asked me about picking it up on an old post or something, and I said, "Oh, sure, no problem." And so I got it. We agreed on a price, and I shipped it off to him down in Texas. And then I swear to God, like a week later, Sabrina's like, "Where's my MacV SOG?" And I'm like, I hadn't discussed it with her. Normally, she's pretty hands off with this stuff, and I was like, "Holy fuck!" So I wrote Sean. I texted him real quick, and I was like, "Hey man, I need you to do me a solid. Can we get that watch back?" And he's true to his word, man. I paid him back, and we shipped it back up here, and there it is. The only watch here that went into Sean Cody's collection and came back out. That's it. The rest of the time, he was a black hole for watches. The next watch he was actually trying to work on getting out of my hands. He loved this one, the Auto Tuna. This is my 7549 7010 300 meter tuna, except it's one that I built with a custom movement, so it's actually an automatic. It's one of the last things he was asking about with me. I don't know. I had a funny feeling. He really wanted a 62 MAS. And I found one for him on Reddit Watch Exchange, and it was on Thursday that I found it, or was it early Friday? Anyway, but it was in 1967, and he was born in October '67, and I sent him the link, and I was like, "Hey man, this is great. It's right in the price range that you're looking for, and it looks like a real decent example." And normally, whenever you would text Sean on Facebook or something, he would go seen immediately. And just nothing. No, he didn't see it. Nothing. It was just really odd. And went through all Friday last week and answered a question from Sean. And I didn't know that he was already gone by that point. We didn't actually find out until Monday that he was gone. A lot of other people knew before then. a lot of watch subreddits, a lot of some legal subreddits, a lot of legal websites, a lot of firearm message boards, because that's what a lot of his law work involved in. But he had a lot of people who were very sad to have seen him go. A lot of people said a lot of nice things about Sean. He made the world a nicer place. And my existence, our existence is poorer for it. He took time to look at us, and he watched, he thought about our kids, and we're, just thought the whole thing was great fun about, having small kids and boys, and we talked about family stuff. And, at my age, friends don't come along that often. So, especially a good one, when they go away, they leave a fairly big hole in the world. So I'm sure some of you have heard of Sean Cody. Maybe some of you have interacted with him. He was also Texas Watch Talk on Instagram. And, but even if you didn't know him, he was a good dude, and I wish he had. He was a funny guy. But he went out hunting on Friday, and he had a heart attack, and he was gone. But he lived a great life, man. He loved hunting and all this other kind of stuff, especially the Fero pigs. They've got billions of them down in Texas, and he would smoke stuff himself and do all the things, and he enjoyed his life. He enjoyed a good cigar, he enjoyed a glass of whiskey, he enjoyed a giant burger, he enjoyed biscuits and gravy, he enjoyed watches. And every time I talked to him, he was pretty pretty cheerful, which was nice. Anyway, Sean, I'm so sorry, man. I wish you were here. I don't have any more questions from you, but I will always feel a little bit of your hand on my shoulder, especially when I'm looking at the things that you were down for. I actually, Sean, the last watch you asked me about on eBay, you found it, was that 6119 Gene Crayons, and I found out you were gone, and I found that listing that you had sent to me, and I won the watch. So it's on its way here. It's not here yet, but it will be here. And that was the last watch that you wanted, and it went off after you died. So it's coming here, and I will restore it in your honor and in your name. And that's it. Okay. Well, thank you for taking time to watch this tribute about someone you've probably never heard of, but I just didn't want to let him go without saying something. Okay, well, Sean Cody, it's been fun, man. Okay, see you later.